Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit Zappy here, back again with Fate01, episode 9 of season 2, and in the last episode we, well, I personally, that was a really sort of tough, horrible scene to witness with Carrier. It wasn't a death of a character, but it was almost like a death of his, like his soul. Like, his soul was crushed. And that's mainly the reason why in the last episode I specifically said that, you know, I don't feel at all bad for Ai for that reason, because, you know what I mean, she basically crushed his soul essentially, when I do believe in some capacity, like some regard, she doesn't actually believe the words that she was saying when she was like, oh, you've never loved anyone. I mean, come on, that's absolute horseshit. I'm sure that she knows that. She's got to have. But, like, you know, I couldn't bring myself to be all that sad, or, you know, for I in particular, because, you know, I think Carrier's been through way too much to fucking deserve any of that shit. So, you know, on one, like, it's a tough one. It's almost like, you know, on one hand, I would have preferred him not to have had to go through with that and died in, like, the previous episodes where he was when he was up against Tokyomi that one time and he fell off the roof. Of course, Kirie healed him back up for his own, you know, it's confirmed he did it for his own gain, obviously. But, you know, but, like, on the other hand, it's like, well, shit, if he was to die, yes, he would have been, like, at peace. But would he have really? Because the whole reason why he's doing what he's doing is to save Sakura, and he can only save Sakura by winning the Grail, right? Winning the war. I mean, I still think after all this, he's still not going to come out on top. I still believe that it's never going to have a happy ending for him, which sucks. But I guess the only thing we can do is really go in episode 9 and see what we get. So, without further ado, let's go. Okay, episode 9. Oh, fucking hell. Alright, well, this is the, like, sort of like it was like the calm before the storm kind of thing. I imagine the next 3 episodes are going to be determining the, I think all going to be, like, essentially, like, one battle or whatever. There may be, like, a case of it being just the next 2 episodes, and the third one's kind of like the aftermath, but, oh, either way, I think this was the last sort of, breath before the plunge kind of thing, so, yeah, I think, if I remember correctly, in episode 8, or was it episode 7, I believe? I can't remember if I talked about it or not, but yeah, Kirie at some point had basically, you know, gave a revelation that essentially, Iri is carrying the Grail. And I'm not sure if I talked about that or not, but it was a big fucking revelation. I remember, I did write it down. I distinctly remembered, like, obviously not talking about it, but yeah, that's nuts. I mean, that makes sense then. Her being a homunculus, like, what is, like, to what exactly? What could it possibly be? In hindsight, I guess it's easy for me to just sit here and then be like, oh yeah, I should have really figured that out. I mean, what else could you possibly be, you know, for? You know what I mean? If I'd sat there and, like, actually thought about it, you know, in silence for, like, you know, about 10 minutes, I probably could have, you know, come to that conclusion. If not, just put it out there as a possible theory as what it could have been, because it was never, like, it never stated in the show, like, there is a Holy Grail, like, in physical form at this moment. So, you know, I possibly could have figured it out, but, it seems like it's an odd one. It's very odd. So it seems like, because this show is focused around, you know, using magic, I'm assuming that she's a sort of a homunculus. She's like a carrier of the Grail, but because that seems to be always the case, it seems to be, like, you know, a recurring thing that the Ainsburns carry the Grail in these homunculi. I'm guessing that's the plural term for it. But, so, theoretically, if you had 2 in possession at one time, like, you know, like, for instance, there's obviously a period of time where both Iri and Elia are both alive at the same time. So does that mean theoretically you could use either one of them to get the Grail? I'm guessing so. I'm not sure if Iri has to be alive for her to be used in the Holy Grail. So I'm guessing she doesn't, because otherwise I don't understand why Kyrie would kill her for. Because I'm sure he doesn't know about, like, none of them know about Elia, right? The only people that know about Elia are Emiya, Iri, and Saber, right? And possibly Maya. But other than that, like, I don't think any of the other people know that. So, you know, I'm gonna assume that she just needs to, you know, essentially go back to what her almost original form is. Like, her Iri being dead is almost, it sort of symbolizes her going back to what she was before, even when she was technically alive. I feel like because she's more or less grown up to, she's grown up around this idea that she is more of an item than a living being. You know what I mean? So, and you know, and she's said things that allude to that in the past. Like, she never had any semblance of life really before Emiya allowed her to have it. You know, Emiya's the one that actually almost like give her life, so to speak. So, you know, it's almost the same way, and I think it's very symbolic that at the end there with with Iri sort of going into the Grail and saying a pile of herself, and it's almost like they're kind of like dolls that have almost been like cast aside, like chucked out, you know what I mean? Like, it's a very eerie, creepy scene. And if that is the true, because if anybody knows the Grail, like, sort of in and out, I assume it's got to be her, right? Like, it has to be somebody who's actually carrying the goddamn thing, right? And that, you know, she seemed rather, I'm guessing that whole sequence at the end there with Iri inside the Grail was a real thing that was happening in time. Like, it wasn't just a, you know, like, I mean, it had to have been, right? Like, I talked about in the reaction, like, that it was sort of like Iri's afterlife. So she still had conscious thought, but after like, she left her mortal being, so to speak, she sort of like, you know, her body became a doll, but then her like soul like got, you know, trapped in the Grail or whatever. So I'm guessing it's a real thing that like actually happened. If she knows exactly what the Grail is, then the Grail to me seems very malevolent. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem like a nice place to be, which contrasts sort of everything that, you know, the Holy Grail is kind of supposed to be. I mean, it's supposed to be holy, but when you're having a look at it on screen there, it looks very much unholy. It doesn't look holy at all. You know, and you know, anime is actually, there's a lot of anime and manga and whatnot out there that kind of like to flip the script so that, like, you know, not everything's as like easy as black and white. You know, what you'd normally associate with things that have a religious nature are that God and you know, and Jesus, Holy Grail, all of it is sort of like, it's white, it's the good side. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, you've got like fucking, you know, Satan and whatnot, and you know, but sometimes they're like sort of like flip it over, and if it's showing, you know, religious you know, symbolism and stuff with the Holy Grail and whatnot, being inside of it seems very much the opposite of what would be considered good or holy. So it kind of makes me wonder exactly what the origin of that thing is, and like where it actually comes from, or how it, because the way that the characters talk about it, they almost seem like it has, like, the Holy Grail itself has some, you know, semblance, like it has some conscious thought of its own, almost like it's an entity, and it's not just, you know, what you consider, oh, what's a Holy Grail? It's a cup. You know what I mean? And even Elias, but like, you know, she said that she dreamt she turned into a cup and it had 7 lumps. I'm guessing the 7 lumps relate to the bursts of mana that Kyrie was sending up, because one colour had 7, right? So I'm guessing that's what it means. it's got to relate to that. So yeah, even Elia dreams of it. So at this point then, Elia will not know what it's about then. Obviously she's too young, so, you know, I agree with the fact that you shouldn't be fucking telling her that shit that young, but, like, it kind of is interesting, like, how the Einsburn sort of family go through with that, like, how they... Because if you... They neither go one way or the other, right? Seemingly, if that's the case. They don't, like, so they allow Elia to be a child first and foremost and have a childhood. So, like, live her life like she's a human being, but then, you know, like, when she gets of age, like, you know, take that life away from her, almost. As opposed to doing it from the very beginning. Or it could be a case of, as long as Iri was alive, Ilya wouldn't have to worry about it. So I guess that, you know, now that Iri's dead, maybe now the sort of now the transformation happens, where they basically go out and tell her, like, all right, now it's your turn, kind of thing. But all that, well, I guess theoretically they'd have to wait until after the Holy Grail War, right? Technically, yeah, I guess. Going back to the very beginning, Waver, like, hypnotizing the old people and whatnot, and I did write down, like, it kind of is sort of sad, but it has a sort of, like, a touch of, like, there's something nice about it, because obviously Waver being who he is, he's not malevolent. He's just, you know, he's just a kid. He doesn't mean any harm by it. But yeah, I was thinking of it being, like, very bittersweet, because, you know, and this was before he even said, like, yeah, like, before he even said, oh, you're not our real grandson, are you? I was thinking, like, it must be sad for him thinking that this is actually all real, but I guess to him it is real, so there's sort of, like, an element of, like, well, at least I've had some family or whatever, right? So yeah, there's a lot of, sort of a lot to take in there, and I'm kind of glad they kind of gave that family some way to basically to influence the story, in what way. It just kind of sort of strengthens, like, Waver's story and the whole thing, which is good. So yeah, and then we had Emiya, who was talking about the spiritual ley lines, essentially the 4 places in which, I mean, what are ley lines? Are ley lines those things where, because I've seen something like this before, and I'm not sure if it's the same thing. In the paranormal world, right, there is, like, apparently lines that aren't, obviously, they're not real, like, you know, physical things that you can see, but essentially, like, there's some lines or something across the way that it works. I think almost like it works like a pentagram, but the idea is that there is more energy along those lines, so paranormal stuff is more likely to occur, like, on those lines. And I can't remember if they're called ley lines or not, because if that's the case, then that just changes the way that I see. I don't think it really matters, like, I don't really need to go that depth, like, that far into it as in the show, but, like, if it's a ley line, then that means how, you know, the Enzo-san church, civil center for Yuki, and the Tosaka estate, if you think about them, like, and draw, like with a ruler, right, if you draw, like, a line to each of them, right, does that mean that the Holy Grail can be summoned along any one of those lines, or do they have to specifically be summoned at those points? I don't know. I heard ley lines, and for some reason that, like, kind of clicked as, like, oh yeah, it's, like, almost like that thing, you know what I mean? Because why would it be called a ley line, you know, if you can only summon them at the 4 places? I don't know, because I feel like if they're connected, then you should be able to, you know, I don't know. But yeah, he did mention that was, I'm pretty sure that wasn't something that like, information that we've been given before. Yeah, Kirie had taken Iri to Cass's hideout, seeing as Emiya didn't, you know, he'd never found that, so obviously it would be the perfect place to fucking to to find her and whatnot. It's a shame that Saber didn't ask Ryder about any of that, because if they had teamed up at that point, then they probably would have been able to get to her before she died. Because we know Ryder found it, right? Shame. Kyrie and Iri, when they were talking, Kyrie wanted to know like what wish Emiya had. Now, the whole thing between Emiya and Kyrie almost springed out of nothing, like almost. The only connection I could really find was a couple of episodes ago when they were having like the Emiya sort of couple of episodes where it was like his backstory and whatnot. That in the very beginning on that island, the executors and whatnot were a big part of like going into that island, right, and sort of almost, you know, taking out all the vampires or zombies or whatever they were, right? Oh, I guess, like, you know, because there was like a clear like distinction between the executors and the mage association, right? And then even on the third end you had the sort of like the rogue freelancers or whatever. I guess they just never seen eye to eye, so naturally they're just more, you know, curious about one another, and I guess that's what started off. But when they were talking, Kyrie was like, you know, so focused, talking to her like, what's his wish? Almost as if he even give a shit. But then once he found out, it's like, you know, I'm wondering if he really cares at all, because when he was talking to her, when he was trying to get out that information, he basically had said like, you know, oh no, conflict is part of like humanity. You take away that, then he sort of like has this idea like, you take away that, then kind of what are we? We kind of lose a part of ourselves, I'm guessing. But then after he killed her, he was like, right, now I know, now I have something to fight for. Like, do you? I don't understand why you would fight for the humans to have the right to conflict. Like, it almost feels like, I mean, to me it seems very like just Kira's just like, you know, he's just a dick and he just wants there to be, you know what I mean, a case for war, whatever the fuck. I mean, I guess almost in some way with Kyrie wanting to destroy the Holy Grail, technically there wouldn't be a case for a Holy Grail war, so you'd be getting rid of one war, technically, though it wouldn't stop war of any other kind, right? So, in a weird, ironic, funny, strange kind of way, Kyrie would be ending a war. I mean, but I guess you could say like the Holy Grail War is like, at least from what I know, right, from this war that we have seen in Fate Zero, right, because obviously it's the only one that I've seen in this world, that the Holy Grail War is actually the least harmful to humanity. You know what I mean? I guess sort of deaths wise, if you have other wars, you have like millions of people die, yeah. In this, it only seems to be a war against, like, you know, a few people, you know, and the servants and whatnot aren't like technically like aren't even humans. So, you know, they're just kind of that sort of like summoned as familiars almost. So like it's, although they do still have feelings and stuff. So, I guess out of deaths, it's the least harmful to humans, but I guess there's probably something to be said about, like, well, yeah, it's least harmless in that way, but depending on what people wish for, like, having the option to wish for seemingly anything, because apparently the thing can wish, you know, give you and grant any wish, that, you know, all it takes is for one person to wish something, like, extremely horrible and, like, you know, extinct the human race, whatever the fuck. So I guess if that's a possibility, in a strange way, like, looking at Kiri's sort of thought process is an odd one, but he seemingly doesn't want to do it for anybody else other than himself, to just stop whatever Emiya's doing, almost like it's a personal vendetta against the guy that for some reason is a rivalry, or, like, you know, he's a nemesis that was seemingly made out of almost nothing. You know what I mean? So it seems very like it just seems like this guy like, I don't like Emmy, yeah, fuck you. That's what it seems like. But you know, if there's more like if there's more to that, you know, like to them two being enemies than, you know, seemingly just curiosity, then let me know, because I would like to know that. but yeah. And finally we had Waver, who used all of his command spells at once, which, you know, I liked that they did this because, like, you know, out of them two, Ryder was the one that I was like, well, he's not going to go off and do things on his own, you know what I mean? Like, because, you know, basically Waver was the one that didn't need command spells, I always thought. So, you know, like, the fact that he used them all at once just basically sort of confirms that. And even more so, the fact that all of the commands that he did give were very vague. Now, I remember somebody telling me, like, the more sort of broad the command is, like, the least sort of effect it has on the person. So you could almost say, like, because it's so broad, and not something as simple as like, oh, I command you to use this as a weapon, you know what I mean? Like, that is not broad at all. That is very specific. You use this as a weapon, you have to do it because I command you to do it. To tell someone, like, to order them to, it's almost like telling them, I order you not to die. Like, some things are just not in your control to do that. Flashback to Code Geass, by the way. But you know, like, the more broader the term, somebody said that, like, the sort of weaker effect it has on the servant that you're ordering. So almost those commands were basically like non-commands, you know what I mean? So I think that sort of symbolizes it a bit more. The idea that, you know, the commands that you ordered weren't all that, you know, that wasn't the thing that was supposed to be focused upon. The commands meant nothing at the end. The point was to get across the fact that, you know, Waver never needed to he never needed to order Ryder around. Ryder was just going to be there regardless, you know what I mean? He basically said, like, you know, you're not my master, but you're my friend, kind of thing, you know what I mean? Which goes back to the very beginning as the reason why Waver even entered this Holy Grail War in the first place, was so that he could wish for people to, you know, basically he just didn't want to be fucking bullied or basically be an outcast for the person that he was. Basically all he needed in the end was, you know, a friend, and that's what he's gained. So there you go. And now he can join the fight and do what he needs to do, you know what I mean, because he's with his friend. So he has a reason now. Like, even Ryder talked about at the very beginning, like, when he asked Waver, it's like, what would you wish for? And he said, oh, I just want to wish that people would, like, take me, what was it, like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but even Ryder, like, called out on his bullshit, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean, what he's wanted all along is right next to him. So yeah, really good episode. So yeah, we'll end that there. We'll get an episode 10. So thank you everyone for watching. In the description below, I have links to certain things. Discord, get yourself over there. I'm over there. Community's over there. Get yourself involved. My website, SirMonkeySuit.com. All my content is over there. And Patreon. I do have a Patreon. If you don't support me, that'd be very much appreciated. There's a bunch of different tiers and rewards depending on how much you want to support me with. So there is early access, $5 a month, everything a week early, and 4 episodes of Fate a week. $10 a month, full length, everything gets a full length. $15 exclusive tier, that gives you access to a bonus show, which is, as of right now, the poll has finished and it's going to be 7 Deadly Sins. So that will be a number of episodes I would have reacted to. So if you're interested in watching me react to 7 Deadly Sins, get over and become an exclusive tier patron. $50, that's the elite tier, so every time you pay $50 you get a choice of a show that you want me to react to, and I will react to it. It will go at the back of the list behind about 7 shows, and it might take a while to get around to it. But if you want to, jump the queue and go at the very front so that your show gets reacted to next, and you want to get God tier, which is $100. But that is all, so thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.